You saw him on the charts, at the top of fashion, at the altar with the most famous woman in the world. He was a genius, a revolutionary, an artist who seemed capable of touching the sky. But behind all that genius, there was deep pain, an emptiness, and a darkness that refused to be filled. This is the story of how one man's ego led him to glory, and plunged him into chaos. The rise of the genius and the shadow of loss. Before we start this story full of highs and lows, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any revelations and stay until the end. You'll be surprised. It all began in a family with love and encouragement. Born in Atlanta, Georgia, and raised in Chicago, you were the son of a university professor, Kanye West, who loved you unconditionally. She was your biggest fan, your rock, the person who saw your brilliance before anyone else. From an early age, you were certain you were different, that you had a gift. You heard music in a way no one else did, visualizing sounds and textures. Your first steps were as a successful producer, and your ambition was your greatest strength. You were a kingmaker behind the scenes, creating anthems for legends like Jay-Z. But your thirst for recognition was greater than anything. You needed to be center stage. In 2004, the world truly met you with the release of the College Dropout. That album was more than a hip-hop record, it was a manifesto. You weren't the stereotypical street rapper, you were the genius, the intellectual, the backpack rapper who broke the industry's barriers. You spoke about your life, your faith, your insecurities, and with that, you became the voice of a generation. The world embraced you, and your career exploded, making you one of the most influential and celebrated artists in music. You seemed invincible, with the certainty that your talent was an impenetrable armor. But your journey to the top was marked by traumas that would leave deep scars. In 2002, before fame, you suffered a serious car accident. With a broken jaw and your life hanging by a thread, you recorded the iconic Through the Wire, a song that spoke about your trauma and resilience. It was a sign that, even when life knocked you down, you got back up. But perhaps it was also the first major trauma that would shape you forever, fueling your sense that you were always at war with the world. Your armor of invincibility had a crack, an open wound that became an abyss. Your relationship with your mother, Kanye West, was your anchor. She was your confidant, the only person who seemed to understand your brilliance and your pain in their entirety. In 2007, everything changed. Kanye tragically passed away after plastic surgery. You were at the peak of your career, but suddenly, you were alone. The loss was the blow that threw you completely off balance, and the void she left was never filled again. You sought that validation everywhere, in every controversy, on every stage. From that moment on, you became unpredictable. Your outbursts of anger, your interruptions at award ceremonies, like the infamous VMA night with Taylor Swift, weren't just your inflated ego. They were cries of pain, from a man who had lost the only person who loved him unconditionally. The world laughed and called you crazy, but they didn't see the pain of a broken heart. What they saw as arrogance was your pain in its purest form, a desperate search for attention and approval in a world that, to you, had become empty. But if you think that was rock bottom, wait until you see what happened next. The chaos, the crisis, and the fall of an empire. What happened after your mother's death was a spiral of self-destruction. The path was paved by impulsive choices and decisions that would lead you to a very dark place. You became a fashion icon, a billionaire entrepreneur, and married the most famous woman in the world, Kim Kardashian. The marriage was a global event, and you seemed to have it all. You were at the top of an empire of success. But that empire was built on a fragile and mentally exhausting foundation. The fashion world embraced you, but the struggle to be taken seriously as a designer drained you. You became obsessed with perfection, and the pressure to stay at the top became unbearable. It was during this time that mental health crises, which were once just whispers, began to manifest more severely. You were diagnosed with bipolar disorder but refused to accept the diagnosis or take medication. You saw medication as something that would strip you of your creativity, your genius. That refusal, combined with unprocessed grief, led you to a series of public breakdowns that became increasingly frequent and concerning. Your controversies grew more extreme. You praised former President Donald Trump, which alienated much of your fan base. But your greatest tragedy was the self-destruction that followed. You lost complete control, having public breakdowns, posting confusing messages, and exposing intimate and humiliating details of your family life on social media. Your marriage to Kim Kardashian crumbled in a series of public and painful events. The image of the perfect couple shattered into 1,000 pieces, with the whole world watching. But your true fall came with your words. You, the man who was always controversial, began to use your voice for something far more dangerous. Your anti-Semitic statements, your remarks about slavery, and your praise of Hitler were no longer just media controversies, they were hate. And the world that once loved and idolized you began to reject you. Your business partnerships, the foundation of your billion-dollar empire, began to collapse one by one in a catastrophic domino effect. Adidas, Balenciaga, Gap, they all abandoned you. You lost your billionaire status. You lost the respect of your peers. You lost your platform and access to your own voice. And, most painfully, you lost the public's trust. You, the artist who once spoke about love, faith, and overcoming, became a symbol of hate and self-destruction. What remained was a man who seemed lost, who remarried in a discreet ceremony but continued to be embroiled in controversies. You, who once was the beacon for a new generation of artists, became a brutal reminder of the danger of fame, untreated pain, and the destructive power of ego. Your journey makes us question, can the genius be separated from the human being? Or are genius and self-destruction two sides of the same coin? Your story is a reminder that, for some, the price of glory is too high. Now that you know the dark side of this star, click on the other video and discover the other side of the story, the good side. After all this, what do you really think about Kanye West? Tell us in the comments.